So, are you DTFF?
Once again, here's Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football with your host, Jake Trowbridge and Dustin Lunt.
Hey, welcome back to DTFF, everyone. Happy Tuesday if you're joining us live. It is probably the most depressing time of the year. Not to start the show off on a bad note here, but
let's do it anyways.
Let's rip the Band-Aid off. We have no more football for like 6 months. And that makes me sad.
Not technically true. That's not technically true.
Well,
we have no more NFL. Thank you.
Yes.
And get into the USFL or the XFL or the CFL or the MMFL, which is what I've pitched to try to be a combination of the MMA and the NFL. TBD if that one takes off, but we might have options, is what I'm saying.
We do, and I will definitely be tuning into multiples of those just to scratch that itch. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Got a great show this evening. We're going to be talking. It's kind of a recap show this evening. We're going to be talking about some of our best and worst trades that we made throughout this year. And if you all want to pop your best and worst trades into the comment box, we'll be sure to share those as well. And then we're going to go back and review some of the beer bets that we made over the course of the past year. And then find out who came out on top on those and then who has to pay out the most. Spoiler, it's not me this year.
Rude.
I know. But before we get into all that, we did have the Super Bowl. And Jake, I'm going to ask the hard-hitting question. What was your favorite commercial?
Oh, that's so easy. It's the Paramount Plus. We throw the child. The Patrick Stewart one with Hey Arnold, where he throws him. Love it.
That was a good one. My favorite was the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup one.
Where I remember that one.
With the caramel on top. And they're like... And it was ridiculous. Like you had to watch it like multiple times to catch everything because they're like, we're making Reese's, yay! And then it's like, but it's for a limited time. And then like this woman like jumped out the window, and she's like, but then there's caramel, and they're like, yay! And she like jumps back into the window and then jumps back out, and this guy like hits his head into the wall and has like a grandfather clock on his head. I was
clearly getting buffalo chicken dip during that commercial or something because
it was fantastic. By far my favorite. Close second was the Christopher Walken commercial. I did enjoy that one.
Yes,
a lot. Just because it's Christopher Walken and I love anything that he does.
That's fair.
But what did you think of the game itself? Any real surprises?
The biggest takeaway from me, a couple of things. I don't know if you knew this. I didn't know this until seeing it on socials after the game, but this was Kyle Shanahan's third Super Bowl loss and third Super Bowl loss where his team held at least a 10-point margin at some point that got erased, which is brutal. And I will say, if we're nitpicking, and I know we're not coaches, but I will say taking your foot off of the run game gas in the third quarter almost entirely bizarre.
Yes.
You have CMC. It's not, I know he wasn't ripping off 25-yarders.
No, but
he
literally
was getting what you needed.
Literally the best back in the league. I think without question, the best back in the league.
Yeah.
And you're not utilizing one of your best players. Yeah, I don't get it either. It's
weird.
It flummoxed me.
Yeah, flummox is a good word. They came out, had the lead still coming into the half, and then it was pass, punt, pass, punt, run, pass, punt. It's like, well, okay, there's your game, basically. Yeah. I know there's a lot of other stuff that happened, obviously, the botched punt return and all that, but that stood out to me. Was there something that stood out to you about this game?
Nothing really that stood out. It was kind of a whatever game. It wasn't overly exciting. There wasn't a lot of huge big plays, It was fine. I mean, it was a fine game. I didn't hate it. It wasn't like it was super boring. Although with the OT it got a little long. And I also forget, it's Super Bowl, so things tend to get longer and elongate, and it was way past my bedtime. Way past my bedtime by the time the game ended. But yeah, I actually enjoyed the halftime show as well. I thought that was good. I
Mhm.
liked Alicia Keys as the special guest. That was nice.
And Ludacris. Let's
Yeah,
not
of
forget
course.
Luda. That was wonderful to see. And Lil
Hmm.
Jon. The whole gang. The whole gang
Yeah,
was out there.
yeah.
Thought this
Illinois
didn't
and
play You Make Me Wanna, which made me want to write an angry tweet, which I think I did.
I see what you did there. That was nice. But all in all, it was a good end to the football season. And now it's on looking forward to next season. Rookie drafts coming up, free agency, all sorts of good stuff here.
Lots of meat on the bone yet for us in this offseason. Arguably still maybe not right now, but coming up is some of my favorite times of the entire year talking about
Mhm.
this stuff. And at least for people listening, look, everybody except for the Kansas City Chiefs fans now can look at this as like the best moment of hope. Like Chiefs fans, you're just celebrating, but
Mhm.
every other 31 team fan group can now just be like, it's all on the table. We're all going for a perfect season next year, and
That's
nobody
right.
can talk you out of it.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, let's move on from all this Super Bowl talk here and get into the show itself. I'm going to ask you this, Jake, just because it's part of the show. But what are you drinking
Sure.
this evening?
I am drinking nothing but pure uncut orange juice tonight.
Oh,
Taking a little back off from the alcohol, but I put a
Florida's best.
I put an ice cube in there just to give me that feeling that maybe it's a screwdriver
Yeah.
secretly, but it's just pretty weak. That's my philosophy, anyways. What are you drinking?
No, that's a good way to do it. I would do the same. I'm drinking my homebrew, my breakfast stout, coffee vanilla stout. It is delicious.
Beauty.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm enjoying every second of it.
as you should.
Yeah,
As you should. I'll rip the
yeah.
band-aid off for this next portion. There's no drunk trade tonight. Although I'm not despairing because we're going to be talking about our best worst trades
Yes,
later on. And there's without a doubt some drunk trades sprinkled in there as well.
for sure, for sure. But yes, folks, please get us your drunk trades. I know we said it last week, but kind of a slow time of the year where maybe now that the Super Bowl is done, maybe some action might start coming up in your leagues as you're kind of starting to look ahead towards the rookie class and hearing more podcasts. Not us so much because we don't focus on rookie analysis here too heavily, but on some of the shows out there, some of the great shows that really dive deep into the rookies. Um, as your juices start flowing from there, maybe some trades will start happening. So get us those. We love talking about them, and hopefully we have some for next week, folks. Don't let us down.
Stop talking about our listeners' juices, by the way. It makes me uncomfortable.
I can't help it. It's just what I do.
All right,
Okay.
you want to get into these? Which thing do you want to start with, I guess?
Well, I was going to ask you that first, but
Okay. I
let's-
say let's rip the band-aid off for me. If we're gonna be okay doing that, let's rip the band-aid off for me with these beer bet payouts because they're rough for this guy. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, my, how the turntables since last season. Because I think it was pretty well completely opposite. I got my ass handed to me in our year-long bets, and I'm glad it's come back around here.
This was the big time revenge year for you, and you did not disappoint. So let's just start this damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for anybody who doesn't remember these, we make these beer. Now we really should call them shot bets, I think, at this point, but they're
We should.
season-long things, right? And we'll go through them one by one. At some point, we'll both pay off what is owed for our shot/beer bets. I might be doing a lot of them in conjunction, like next week. It might just be a situation where I pay the bulk of them off to get them off the plate, but TBD.
Ooh, calling in for work the next day then, huh?
I just might. It just might. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be paying off one this evening just because I can and I will. So yeah, let's get into it here. So we'll start from the beginning, from the earliest ones. So this is going way back to episode 195. And I actually didn't go back to look to see what the topic was that day. But the bet was that DJ Moore versus Jamison Williams, points per game, who's going to have higher points per game. I said DJ Moore, you said Jamison Williams, and I won this one. DJ Moore had 11.2 and Williams had 4.7, just basically a non-factor.
Why did I say this?
I don't know.
What I wish I would have went back and listened to the episode to even see why Jamison Will. I knew I was slightly higher on Jamison Williams as like a value, and there would be some missed time or whatever. And I just thought in that offense,
If
big
I had
plays.
If I had to guess, it was probably when we were talking the NFC North.
Yeah.
Since those are both NFC North players. And I know I was down on him. I thought
Rightfully so.
going in, coming out of the draft, I thought he was a good value. And then I was, kind of out on him after some of the shenanigans. So I think that's probably where that came from. And, talking about the Bears, you were not, I don't think, too high on the Chicago offense. Where I was high on them, obviously. So I think that's probably the genesis of that trade.
That was the impetus. What a dumb impetus on my behalf. So I have nothing to say about Jamison Williams going forward. Or, I mean, if you could get him super cheap in Dynasty, maybe, because he did pick up a little bit of steam as the season progressed, at least. Still not great. DJ Moore, on the other hand, I could see people taking him at the end of the second round next year, and I don't know that I could disagree with it too much. We'll see.
Yeah. Yep. Especially
we'll see what the quarterback is.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. We have to see. Yeah. But even if things stay the same and it's Justin Fields, you had to like what you saw this last year between the two of them. There was definitely some chemistry there. So, all right. Moving on. This one, episode 203. We said that, or I said that Dalton Schultz finishes as a top 10 tight end or higher in points per game. And we had the minimum of 8 games. I think he ended up playing 15. I didn't vet that, but I know he didn't really miss any time. And he squeaked in at tight end 10 at 6.1 points per game. I mean, I feel bad about taking that one because it was only 6.1. I feel
no, you don't.
A little bit, just like a smidge. Because 6.1 points per game, like that is not a high bar to be a tight end 1 in points per game. Like that's just the landscape of tight ends, unfortunately.
Which is weird because this year, at least, tight end has felt different. And we talked about this in previous podcasts. Like next year, maybe punting the position is totally cool because you've got so many of those guys like Jake Ferguson and Trey McBride and obviously Sam Laporta and some of the bigger names too. But it finally feels deep. And yet Dalton Schultz manages to sort of scrape and claw his way in there. It's unfortunate.
Well, unfortunate for you. Good for Dalton Schultz and for me.
Sure.
All right. So here, Jake, we'll give you one of a victory here. Episode 207. This one just hurts. So I said that Kyle Pitts finishes as top 5 in total points and points per game for tight ends. And I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. We had some Kyle Pitts conversation. And yeah, so he finished as in points per game, tight end 15 and tight end 12 as total points. Now, we know that Arthur Smith is gone. New head coach, new OC. I would think Pitts is going to get more involved since he was such a high, they spent such high draft capital on him. But what are your feelings? Very early. What are your feelings on Pitts for next season? Just
talking about very early.
Buy or sell.
That's so hard because if you're in a dynasty league right now, you're buying him if you don't have any other decent tight end. If you got any of these other guys, literally, let me go down the list and I'll say, if you have one of these other guys, I'm probably not buying because I don't think the juice is going to be worth the squeeze. If you got Laporta, if you've got Kelsey, if you've got Hawkinson, if you've got Kittle, if you've got McBride, if you've got Ferguson, if you've got Goddard, if you've got Andrews, I'm not buying. So like who maybe, and I understand the idea you don't just need one
Mhm.
tight end, but like I just think you could find some dart throws at tight end still that would be
Right.
okay, that are still cheaper than what Kyle Pitts is right now.
Well, I was saying the
So
cost to get him, while people are probably down on him a little bit, I think the time to strike would have been before the season ended.
mhm,
Now that they know Arthur Smith is gone, I think there's a little optimism there. And yeah, his price is still going to be, I think, too rich for my blood. People, I mean, because he's a generational talent. He's only his third year in the league. He's still only like 20 years old, apparently. So it's just like there's a lot to look forward to, and there's a lot of hope there. So I don't think people are going to give you much of a discount on him. But
mhm.
if you can get a discount, I think, yeah, try to snag them up. But I just don't think, like you said, it's going to be worth the squeeze.
Yeah, I mean, could you even get him for 2 seconds at this point in
I
Dynasty?
don't I
I
don't think
doubt it.
so.
It's gotta be a first, and
Mhm.
I just would rather not. He'll get targets. I just
Mhm.
don't know the quality of those targets, but I'm glad I got this one victory here in these. We'll go to another one that I did not get a victory. It was close, at least. It was close this
Yeah, this
one.
one this one was really interesting as I was getting the show sheet together. I was like, "Ooh," I'm like, this is an interesting one." So this was episode 210, and you had said, Jake,
Mhm.
this was our mock draft episode. You said that four or more of the following running backs would outperform DeAndre Swift, and you said Dalvin Cook, Cam Akers, Rashad White, Antonio Gibson, David Montgomery, James Cook, and AJ Dillon.
Yeah.
It's quite the
I wanna
list.
say this was before the Dalvin Cook trade,
I would,
right?
yeah, yeah. I think this was fairly early in the off season yet.
Otherwise, I don't think I would have if he was on the Jets at this point, I can't imagine I would have lumped
No,
him in there, but
no, no, no. I think this was
maybe.
before he got traded, for sure, for sure.
Okay.
So how this all broke down is DeAndre Swift basically ended right in the middle. So you had Rashad White finishing eighth, David Montgomery ninth, and James Cook 11th. All the way down to 23rd is DeAndre Swift. And then you had 40th was AJ Dillon, 45 Gibson, 68 Cam Akers, and 78 Dalvin Cook. So it was closer than I expected it to be honest. Once I was looking at the names, I'm like, right away, I was like, okay, Montgomery. I knew Rashad White was there. I was surprised that James Cook finished above him. Honestly, he had a better season than I just remember because it was a very
It was
under the
sneaky.
radar season. So I didn't realize he finished that well. AJ Dillon was obviously a disappointment. Um, Antonio Gibson, I know we had
Ugh.
differing opinions on that backfield, which we'll get to in a little bit. Akers obviously didn't do anything this year. Neither did Dalvin Cook, which I think we've seen the end of Dalvin Cook, unfortunately, in any sort of significant role. Let's put it that
Yeah, and in terms of draftability for
way.
fantasy,
Hmm.
absolutely. I'm sure he'll cling on somewhere,
Oh, for
and,
sure.
this happens with veterans like that.
Yeah,
They'll
it's like
cling to
Zeke.
somebody who needs depth. Yeah.
Yeah, he'll have opportunities, but it's nothing. It's going to be more in a relief role than anything else.
Yes. Now, I do want to talk about Antonio Gibson a little bit, but let's do that after we just get right into this follow-up beer bet that we made, which was just straight up Brian Robinson versus Antonio Gibson in full PPR.
Hmm.
And Dustin, you took the much more correct side in Brian
I
Robinson.
sure did. Yeah, Robinson ended up with 162.1 points, or just under 11 points per game, and Gibson had 79.4 points with a paltry 5 points per game. So, what do you want to talk about with this one, Jake?
Okay. Two things,
Two
because I think they
things.
work together. Antonio Gibson is almost certainly gone from Washington this year.
I would
I
think
would say.
so. Yeah.
Almost certainly. Because
Hmm.
they have, I forget, and I apologize, I forget the guy's name behind him on the depth chart that they kind of seem to like. It seems like a pretty respectable running back. But then they've got Brian Robinson, who showed like, cool, give this guy the workhorse load. I don't think there's any issues with that with Brian Robinson. Antonio Gibson, even with new coaching staff and everything there, I just think he's out. I think
Hmm.
nobody's going to pay top dollar to bring him back. I heard little birdie saying, this was months ago actually, that the Chargers really liked Antonio Gibson and loved his skill set and felt like it matched up pretty well with the type of thing that they had. Now, this is pre-Harbaugh, so keep that very much in mind. But if Gibson goes to some place like the Chargers, who would likely be a run-first team, we talked about that a little bit with Harbaugh in the coaching carousel episode.
I was saying now it's official. Greg Roman is the offensive coordinator there. So we definitely know that he's a fan of running the ball.
Yeah. So it could be interesting. Landing spot will very much determine if I have any interest in Antonio Gibson. And it has to be a premium landing spot for him to be on my radar again after getting so severely burned so many times in a row. But it could happen. It could happen.
Yeah, and I would like to see him go to a team that would actually use his pass receiving skill set. Because Washington didn't use it. I mean, he's a converted wide receiver, and they just didn't use him that way either, which was, so I don't know what he did to the coaches there in Washington, why they didn't utilize him like we all hoped he would be, because he's got some juice, he's got that explosiveness, and he just, I don't know why. So here's hoping he does go to a better spot so he can redeem all of our fantasy dreams.
Just when I think you couldn't get any worse, you
That's
go to
right.
the Chargers and totally redeem yourself. Justin Fields, does he need redeeming? Talk about this one.
He does. Yeah, I said he was going to throw for at least 3,200 passing yards. He did not do that. He had just over 2,500. I will say in only 13 games. Had he played the full slate, I think he could have gotten the 500 yards or 700 yards he needed. Would have been close. Regardless, we did not have a minimum games on this, and I think this would have beat the threshold, to be honest. Anyway, yeah, I thought this offense was really going to take a step forward this year, and unfortunately, it did not. Justin Fields, if anything, looked like he took a step back. I know they got rid of their OC there, so maybe things will change. As we talked about, we don't know what's going to happen with him. He could end up getting traded here before the draft for some picks, or he could be sticking around. We just don't know. We just don't know. He'll be somewhere for sure in the mix to get a starting job. He's still young. I think he's shown enough that he can play. I think it's just having the right coaches and the right pieces around him to make that happen.
It's got to be somewhere besides Chicago. It just has to be. This doesn't make sense for him to restart there yet again under a different coaching staff and all of that. I will say he's probably got in the top 3, at least in terms of range of outcomes for next year. It's probably him, Kirk Cousins, and maybe like Baker Mayfield. Like anything could happen with those 3 guys, truly. And they could be bottom of the barrel or they could be top of the heap in terms of fantasy. So stay tuned for that.
Definitely. This one I think we talked about already, but we will just recap it. It was mano a mano week 1 in our home league. I won this one.
I paid it out.
You paid it out. We're all good. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we talked about this one after week 1, just because I couldn't help myself to brag that I beat you. But that's just how it goes. All right, and then the last one we have here on our payouts here, which we got to do better about doing some more. This isn't too many. I'm a little disappointed in ourselves, but this was in week 6. We did a rest of season bet where you had said, Jake, that David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs would finish within 10 spots of each other.
Yeah. Which is wild to think about now. And I honestly thought that I got it.
And
but
you know what?
Evidently not.
No, I'm pulling up the sheet because I think I misread that.
Oh, did you?
Because it says spots instead of points. I think I read it as points.
Thank you.
So
thank you. And this was week 6 on. So this was, as a little bit hindsight here, this is me acknowledging that overall I was wrong about Jahmyr Gibbs in terms of drafting him because I wasn't in on his price, but it was mostly because I was so afraid of what was going to happen at the start of the year. I thought it would be too much of an easing in process for him, kind of like how it happened with Alvin Kamara back in the day. And I mean, to my credit, that it did take him a little bit to get going, but once he really got going, it was pretty huge. So that was nice to see.
So I am trying to pull up the points here. So yeah, week 6 to week 18. Oh, it doesn't break it down nicely.
If we're doing points
Boo.
per game, Jahmyr Gibbs was at RB4 during that stretch. And then we had scroll, David Montgomery more than 10 below. That is 12 spots below him. So I still technically lose this one.
It was closer than I thought because I'd put the points. For some reason, I read total 10 points instead of 10 spots. So I apologize to you, Jake, that I wasn't accurate on that. Regardless, the outcome is the same. Although they both ended up with great seasons, they're both fantasy viable all the way till the end, which I expect more of the same next year. I think Montgomery will be back. Obviously, Gibbs is there. If you have a great 1-2 tandem like that, why would you move away from it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You betcha.
Well, that ends our bets here. Jake, I do want to pay one of mine off here today.
Please do.
So let's get the worst one out of the way here. The Kyle Pitts bet. I will pay that one off just so I can rinse that bad taste out of my mouth. Jake, you're an amazing fantasy football prognosticator / genius. Congratulations.
Well, thank you for saying that. It's so earnest, and it's definitely not something that's been pre-scripted. So that was lovely to hear. Yeah, it's good to get that taste out of your mouth. Go ahead. Let's notch this one off. I'll write it down here. This thing's been paid in full.
And that just felt very right doing Fireball today because it's Mardi Gras. And I forgot to mention that at the top of the show, which at Mardi Gras, you do lots of Fireball because that's what's there.
Where's your beads, man? You got no beads today.
I know. I'm letting myself down.
Beads. Sorry, that's the Arrested Development thing too. But that's okay.
Did you say bees or beads?
Beads. So we're good because you paid off the Kyle Pitts bet. So I'll wipe all of that out. Now we get to do this thing that we've done. We've done it on occasion. I don't know that we've done it super often, but we're in dynasty mode now officially for the next, I don't know what, probably next 5 months or something close to it, 4 to 5 months before we start tinkering around with redraft again as we get closer to August. I'll say once we probably get into June territory, we maybe start discussing redraft a little bit more earnestly. But in the meantime, it's dynasty. Dynasty, obviously, is mostly about the trades. So that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be going best trade, worst trade. I've only got one of each because I want to actually talk about them a little bit. And not to pat myself on the back too much, but I kind of deserve it after that train wreck of beer bets that just happened. I've said before, I think this is the best year of trading that I've personally done since I started Dynasty. So luckily, I had a lot more options to choose from in the best trade category than in the worst trade category. There were still some real stinkers. Don't get me wrong. But overall, as you were kind of going back through yours, did you find that it leaned one direction or the other?
I think overall, I'm happy with how the trades all worked out for the most part. There was nothing that was really just like, oh, what the fuck was I thinking type deal. I mean, there's some that, obviously weren't ideal, but nothing where I just was like, I should go throw myself in front of a bus because this was the worst trade ever.
Good.
Yeah. It was really good.
Cool. Well, I'm glad we got that sorted out at least. Do you want to kick us off or do you want me to start us here?
Why don't you start us off here?
All right, let's do it. I don't know if this one's going to play very well in the banner. But let's see. Let's see. All right, that's fine. It's close enough. So, my favorite trade was technically kind of a two-parter, but they happened literally back to back. So I joined them because the
Fair
players
enough.
involved were both involved in both trades. So ultimately, this was back on, let me check, September 18th for some context here. So barely into the season officially. I traded away Devontae Smith, Kylan Granson, who's a random ass tight end for the Colts, and a 2025 third round pick. And I received back the combination of Nico Collins, Zay Flowers, and Christian Watson. I fucking love this trade. I cannot wait until this coming season. I'm not even the biggest Christian Watson guy. We've talked in the podcast plenty. I kind of prefer Jaden Reed. I've preferred at cost Romeo Dobbs, but Nico Collins, Zay Flowers, I think are the guys for their respective offenses. Zay Flowers really got humming along as the season crested. Some of that was without Mark Andrews, of course, so you got to take that into account, but he just looked like the real deal. Christian Watson, if the whole thing in Green Bay is accurate, where they've brought in a brand new strength and conditioning coach that is almost exclusively going to work on hamstrings, and hopefully he should be healthy for the foreseeable future as well. And B, maybe like I don't know, what do you think? Low-end wide receiver 2 in that range for Dynasty?
I think that's fair.
Can we get there? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. So I liked this. Devontae Smith, it was hard for me to give up because I really did like Devontae Smith. However, A.J. Brown proved to be like the much more consistent asset for this season. It's probably going to be the case going forward for the most part. So this one felt nice. Warmed my heart.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. When I saw Devonta Smith, I was like, ooh. But then when I see the pieces you got back, especially Nico taking that giant step forward this year, you got to like what that offense is doing there in Houston moving forward. Zay Flowers, another rookie, young, he should improve as more time in that offense. And Christian Watson, yeah, if he stays healthy, we've seen what he does in flashes. So I think you definitely made like a bandit in that one.
Woo, like a
I like
sticky
it.
bandit, like a wet bandit.
Like a wet bandit. That's right.
All right. What's your one of your best trades that you would like to talk about?
I think one of my best trades, and I did this one. This was way back in April, so it was before our rookie draft. In my one dynasty league, I gave up DeAndre Swift, Jamison Williams, and the 313 in the draft that year. All right, so I got back in return the 113 in the draft, the 209, and a 24 first. So I got two firsts and a second for DeAndre Swift, Jamison Williams, and the end of a third round pick.
All right. We talked about Jamison Williams. We understand he's not going to ascend to that high level category that you assume when you drafted that guy in the first round. I think we're just kind of at that stage. DeAndre Swift, yeah, fine. Could continue to be fine.
He'll be fine. Yeah. But he's not going to be anything spectacular. Not in that offense.
No. And the 313, I would love to know who they spent it on, because maybe it was somebody like Devin Achane, and then you're just going to really kick yourself. But probably
I think Achane went in like the second round of that draft. He went pretty early.
So late first, latest second, and a 2024 first. Do you know at this point what the 2024 first looks like? If it's
no, we haven't rolled over our league yet, so I don't know. I could probably figure it out if I really wanted to.
No. Let's assume a mid first. We'll just assume mid first.
Yeah.
And in this draft class, I think that's completely respectable. Right? A mid first in this draft class. It's super flex, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tight end premium.
Yeah. I think you'll have a wealth of options there. Yeah, I love this. I don't think it's like, oh man, you lit a match, threw it in the gasoline, and then slow-mo walked away from it. I don't know if I would get there with this one, but it's pretty damn good. And again, Jameson Williams, I think now, if you're honestly looking to try to get him in Dynasty, second round pick absolutely does it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Has to.
I would think so.
Yeah. So the days of first round picks, I think, for Jameson, well over. DeAndre Swift, same deal. I don't know if you have to give up even an early second to get DeAndre Swift. Late second probably does it in most leagues for Swift at this
Mm-hmm.
point. Maybe I'm underestimating. I don't know. So really, it's just a wealth of picks there. I love this, especially if there's any retooling, rebuilding going
Well,
on.
and this is my one league where I'm in a full blown rebuild, like tore it down to the studs. I
Yeah.
basically have no quarterback, like no like I have nothing except for like uh, a couple of decent tight ends.
Nothing. Which, yeah, at that point, this was the perfect timing to trade those guys away as well. So
Mm-hmm.
kudos to you on that one. Let me go ahead. Do you have any best ones that you want to talk about besides that? I kind of just want to get into the worst.
Um, I, I I don't. I mean, I made some other ones. They're fine. There's nothing that like is like, oh my god, I fucking nailed this one.
You don't need a
Um,
change of pants after reviewing any of these
no,
other
no,
ones.
no,
Okay.
no.
All right.
You know, as I said, this with this trade, you know, I was on a total rebuild team, so I did made a ton of trades, traded away a ton of pieces just to accrue draft capital and younger players. So lots we could talk about with that team, but ultimately I won't bore you with that.
A lot of I will say, if we're going to talk trends in terms of like best trades that I've made, a lot of my best trades that weren't these big ones, because I had kind of an honorable mention. I guess I'll just throw it out here, but I ended up very early trading away um, Travis Etienne for what became the 102 this year,
Oh, that's
the
nice.
211, and Quentin Johnston. Quentin Johnston, just kind of a cross your fingers and pray
Yeah,
situation for that guy right
I
now.
mean,
But the
I
102,
yeah, that's I mean, super flex league.
super flex league.
I
Yeah.
mean, you're basically guaranteed a quarterback if you want one, or Marvin Harrison, depending on how your
Yeah.
squad is. You know, so it's just like I mean, that is a
Feels
fucking
good.
slam dunk trade.
And that was just a couple of weeks into the season. This was my two quarterbacks in that league were Joe Burrow and Aaron Rodgers. And I was just like, yep, that's not happening this year. Let me do a mini rebuild. I called it a
Yeah,
soft rebuild. It's
yeah,
like, I'll take options. And this person was very much in contention. They thought at that time, and I think they had to go
right.
through injuries and whatnot, and eventually themselves transitioned into somewhat of a rebuild later in the season, which is how I benefited from that 102. But
Hmm.
outside of those kind of trades, I was doing all these dink and dunk little like, oh, here's an Adam Troutman for a late third, like get him off of my team. Give
Right.
me these, it was all that kind of thing, which
Hmm.
still nice. Like those trades work out and can have a nice continual impact, but nothing that's off
Yeah.
the wall.
Yeah, like I said, mine were all good trades. I mean, I think I ended this season with 5 first round picks over the next 2 seasons.
Beautiful.
So like I said, I traded a lot of capital, but really just starting from scratch, and which is kind of fun. I've never done a full blown rebuild like this before, so it's kind of fun to just trade away all your pieces and uh, hope that I listen to the right podcasts and do enough scouting of rookies that I hit on all these and set myself up for a nice little run here coming up.
And now you have the decision to make when you've accrued all of these draft picks, and it's the first time having so many. Do you
Hmm.
actually use them on the
Yep.
incoming rookie class? Or a lot of very smart people like to
Hmm.
say that just accrue them and then start trading them
Trade.
off
Yep.
on the day of the draft,
Yep.
basically, for you proven
Yep.
veterans. So I think it depends probably on how fast you think you're ready. Do you want to
Hmm.
trade them for veterans now? or do you want to kick the can down the road, accrue even more draft picks
Right.
in the next class? That
Right.
depends on if you think you can be done rebuilding this year or not. I
Right.
guess.
Right. Yeah. So
All right.
anyway, let's give me one of your worst trades, Jake.
I'll give you what to me feels like the worst trade looking back here. So this was a very early one as well. This was August 31st, the day of this trade. I traded away Adam Thielen and James Conner. James Conner, drinking buddy for me. That made this very hard. I remember talking about this shortly after the trade happened. I felt terrible. Adam Thielen, I thought, had a ton of promise on this team. The reason I'm saying this is a bad trade before I even get into what I received for it is because the timing couldn't have been worse. I sold both of these players probably at their lowest point from that point for the next 7 to 8 weeks. Because Adam
Right.
Thielen went on that tear.
Oh God,
of
he
just
was
like the first
amazing.
6 weeks. He was like the wide receiver 3 or some shit in his first 6 weeks.
Yeah,
Just
it was
scoring
crazy,
touchdowns,
bonkers.
doing what Thielen does. And James Conner looked very, very good. We've already talked about him. He was a fringe RB1 throughout the course of the season. And I believed that. But going into this rebuild, I knew I didn't have space for either of these guys. I didn't want to get points. So I ended up trading for Michael Wilson, a rookie wide receiver for the Cardinals, John Mechie, who I still have some hope for coming back from, leukemia to play for the Texans. Like, that's a huge story. And then I got a 2025 second and a 2024 fourth round pick. I look at it in terror now.
Yeah, it may work out okay. I mean, the 25 seconds, fine. Mechie,
Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, you got Nico that really broke out. You got Tank Dell, who's their number 2. So at best, you're looking at third wide receiver. Not looking great.
It's rough.
Michael Wilson,
I'm holding out some hope.
He flashed at moments.
Yeah.
And maybe part of that was, Kyler was out to start the first half of the year. So maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe he'll get a little bit more integrated. We'll see. But yeah, that's not looking great, especially like you said, given how many points those two scored to start the year. Like, that's what hurts the most. I think
if I made that trade 3 weeks later, you're looking at a first round pick for both of them combined.
Oh yeah,
probably.
Easy.
You might have to throw in a fourth and some shit.
A first for the two of them with the points they were scoring. I think you could have gotten that done.
I think it might have been attainable. So that's
especially for someone that thought they were a real contender. Yeah. I think that probably could have gotten done, but yeah, that one, that's unfortunate.
Could have, would have, should have.
Jake. Yeah. Yeah. Mine, right, Jake, not to make you feel bad, isn't quite that bad. Sorry. I know.
I'm gonna go back and talk about some of my best ones after this.
I would say my worst trade. I did this this back in May. So again, very early in the offseason. I was very bullish on Deontay Johnson, and I gave him I got him for a 24 first. And it turns out in this league, I did not do very well this year. My team did not do well. So this is a fairly high, I would say probably top 4 draft pick. So yeah, that did not work out at all. And I feel bad because I just know now with I don't even want to say his name. I can't. I just
he who shall not be named.
Yeah, Voldemort. It's Voldemort. He is there now in Pittsburgh, and it just makes me sad that Deontay Johnson probably will never realize his full potential unless he leaves the Steelers at some point, which is all we can hope for. I mean, is he still going to get funneled the ball because he's a ball hog and, they can't throw deep passes? Yeah. But just with the run first attitude of Voldemort, I just don't have high hopes. And it just makes me very, very sad that I made this trade.
Well, and it's like, Calvin Austin's going to get like 80 targets in that
Yeah,
offense. And
exactly.
Darnell Washington's going to get another 80 targets in that offense. So he's going to distribute out to some of those outliers on the depth chart. A first
Yeah.
is rough for Deontay, no doubt. I
was so high
think
on him last offseason. I really thought like we were going to see the trend continue. And I was like, okay, he for PPR, he's great because he catches a lot of balls, not much of a yak guy, which is fine. I'm like, there's going to be positive regression on the touchdowns. Like, there's no way this offense
which there
scores
was
as few.
technically.
Well, technically, yes, but not what we expected. So that's why I was so high on him because I'm like, he's got to score at least 7 or 8 touchdowns this next year, at least, along with his 90 catches or whatever he had. It's just like,
Yeah.
no, just didn't happen.
You could have traded a second for George Pickens instead, and somehow I actually felt a lot better about it.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I can commiserate here because there was definitely a day when I was the guy trading a first round pick for Jarvis Landry with the exact same
Mhm.
thought process of like, this dude, all he does is soaks up targets. He's a PPR machine. Great. And, hopefully I could get Jarvis in like a third back for a first round pick. So I was making those same sorts of decisions with trades. Is this going to steer you off of that thought process going forward? Or you just chalk it up to shitty year?
I I just chalk it up to shitty year. And then, it's unfortunate that, like I said, you can never foresee what coaching changes are going to happen, a year down the line. Obviously, had I known this was going to happen, I would have steered clear of it. But it is what it is. I'll take my lumps. He's still a very young player. Like I said, hopefully he finishes out his initial contract here with Pittsburgh and then moves on to greener pastures where he can actually be a featured number one in a high powered offense.
Here's to hoping.
That's right.
Folks.
I just got to wait a couple years, but it'll happen.
What? All right. We don't need to dwell on the bad trades, but like if we're going to talk about what we've learned from actually trading this past year, because that's ultimately the goal, is you can't replicate every amazing trade that you've done. Sometimes it's just timing. Sometimes it's, luck, whatever. But I think in principle, I have made a pretty big change in how I've addressed trading this year. And a lot of it just starts with the fact that I'm not going to go out betting on a team. I did that for a long time. I'm just like, hitch your wagon to the best teams in the NFL. Everything else will just work itself out. I think you get in trouble with that a little bit, though, if the player themselves isn't a supremely high talent. And you're just like, well, this team, they're probably going to run the ball a whole bunch. So I want that running back. Like, I will instead invest in the talent. It's kind of the James Conner principle. Maybe that's what I'll call it. Some dude who's just like, the team was garbage, the Cardinals, but like having that faith in him because of the player and because of past process, rather than like, that's a shitty team, I'm just going to fade him. That was a big change for me. But
Right.
any big changes that you made?
Can we just from now on call it the JC principle?
Yes, done.
I love it. Yeah, it's the JC principle or JC rule, whatever, however we want to do it. Yeah, I love it. Anyway, I think my big thing is because I'm very surprise, I'm fairly conservative when it comes to trading. I don't necessarily make a lot of trades. For whatever. I like to stick. I like to think that the guys I draft, those are my guys. Like I get attached to them, and I'm trying to break that. And so I think this rebuild that I'm doing in my one league is really helping with that. It's like, yeah, make trades. Like you need to accrue as much as you can. Get rid of these point scorers and just. So I think it's just that. Just going through this process has just been like, no, you just make trades. You can always make another one afterwards. Like if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Like it's not the end of the world. We're playing a game within a game. And I just need to loosen up a little bit and just, have some fun with it. And that's the big thing. Just remember to have fun and just like, it's not the end of the world. It's not like I'm playing in these high stake leagues where I got thousands of dollars on the line where, making decisions like that is a big deal. No, I play in relatively low stakes leagues. So it's just like, yeah, have fun with it. If it doesn't work out, oh well, get them next time.
Even in the big money leagues, though, I think the worst thing you can do is say that trade ruined me. I'm going to stop making trades because that trade ruined me. Like, you can
Oh, for
trade
sure.
yourself out of a bad situation. I'll give you an example. I traded away Brandon Cooks for Tyler Higbee straight up before the season because I'm a dummy and sometimes I just like to make trades. I like to move. And then I turned around like 2 weeks later and somehow got a second and a third round and a fourth round pick back for Higbee. And I was like, great. I would have even probably gotten that for Brandon Cooks in the first place. So if you keep working it, it can work itself out.
It can. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's the big thing that I took away is just don't be afraid. Not throw all caution to the wind, just some of it.
A little sprinkle it into the wind.
Yeah.
Here and there.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that works. Well, look at us.
Yeah. Any other trades you want to discuss here, Jake, before we head out this evening? Because really we are at the end of the show.
We are. The only trade I want to discuss is the trade where Green Bay gets a supremely talented safety in the offseason. That's the trade I want to talk about.
Well, and I don't know if you watched any of like the pregame stuff, but I did see they had like all like the early mock drafts, from all the experts.
Sure.
I saw quite a number had Green Bay taking a cornerback in the first round.
Fair.
So definitely addressing that secondary needs.
Because we haven't put enough draft picks into that defense over the last 5 years.
True. Very true. But so maybe you'll get your wish.
I hope so.
All right. Parting thoughts here, Jake?
Parting thoughts. It's like you said, football is technically over, but don't make it be like legitimately over. And make sure to keep tuning in for us because we're going to have so many dynasty centric shows that are going to blow your mind. We're going to be talking about each individual team as we do every offseason.
Yep. Got our divisional breakdown series, which is so fun. We get some really great guests on to talk about their favorite teams. Let people homer out a little bit, as we like to do from time to time here with our Green Bay Packers. So that's always a lot of fun, really getting the fans of their teams to talk about it. That's like my favorite stretch of shows. So I'm really glad that those are coming up again.
It's good times. It's good times, damn it. That's all I got.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, folks. As we said earlier, send us some drunk trades, any you made last season or any that you've made recently. If you haven't made any recently, just dabble a little bit, do a little drinking or, other
do
things.
It for our sake.
Any other thing that makes you feel good, then make some trades and then let us know how it all turned out because we love to talk about it. Other than that, I don't have much else to say. Just keep drinking and talking fantasy football.
Cheers, FFers.